Hi, welcome back to It's About the Story. This is Module 5, where we talk about taking some of those core topics that VCs are most interested in and incorporating them into your story and to your presentation. These four are great product, great market, great business model, and great team. So let's get into how you start to incorporate those into your presentation. So before we start, the stuff you see in the orange box down below me here, that's what we said in module 2. So we won't be going over that again. The stuff still counts, but we're going to focus a lot more in this section on how you put this into your story, which then becomes part of your presentation, both in the way you verbalize it and in your slides as well. So the first thing when it comes to product, you want to use as many graphics and pictures as possible. They just work better. And that's whether you're describing your technology or if you're describing the value you bring to your customer and what he or she experiences that you help make better. You really want to be able to explain complex concepts in simple ways if you have a complex technology. And that's a challenge for a lot of you. And you want to avoid the esoteric technology description. VCs just really don't like that. They want you to put this in the terms that the every person can get. It isn't like they won't sometimes have experts, because sometimes they will, and they'll ask questions that are very detailed and that'll require that level of jargon. But you really want this to be put into the more common person's language. Now, this is a true story. I once had an entrepreneur that I coached for a particular competition with a fair amount of money involved, and I was also one of the evaluators. And as he was going through his presentation, I was sitting next to one of our vice presidents, and she tapped me on the shoulder and just said, "Do you know what the heck he's talking about?" And my answer was, yeah, I actually do, but I don't think most people in the room do right now. He's off script. And in the end, it just didn't go all that well for him. One way to do this is to use what I call the Discovery Channel method for technology. And it's a great way to take difficult technology and put it in simple terms. And it works because the Discovery Channel is just great at this. So they can do exactly that for in a 15-minute segment. They can have you understand something without a technical background that has got a lot of technology with it. So the method works by targeting an audience member who has an above average IQ because they're watching the Discovery Channel, but doesn't necessarily possess a science or engineering degree. And you try it, you see what happens. You explain it to them in a very, very simple way. And then you still do what we talked about in the talking to friendly section in one of the earlier modules, is you note where their questions are going. And what are the things that they tend not to get, and you follow that mental path, and it works really, really well. So this is a great place to use that. I'll give you an example of where one of my entrepreneurs used it. This is a true story. Um, I had a customer who made the MRI cuffs. So right here, this is where all the energy goes when you're getting an MRI of your knee. If it's for your elbow, it's going to be obviously at your elbow. And they decided that they were going to explain how the molecules in your knee are usually in a randomized fashion, and they all kind of line up when you apply a significant magnetic field to them. So they started off by explaining the angular rotation of each molecule. It was unbelievable, and, and it was unintelligible technobabble. And I just stopped them and said, "You are not thinking about starting that way, are you?" And they said, "Well, they really have to know how it works." And I said, "Well, it may not be a bad thing to start with, but that is not the way you do it." So we finally got it down to the way it works is that when they apply that magnetic field, all of those molecules do in fact line up. So they go into a way that they're not random anymore. And the rate at which molecules that are soft tissue versus fluids versus hard tissue like bone go back to randomness are different. And that's how they create the image. So that's what they use, and it worked fantastic. So that's where we were able to go from this unintelligible technical babble to an interesting pitch intro for these guys. One thing that really works in the product side is that whole concept of Someone has a problem, here's our solution. And this is something you should definitely incorporate in the way that works best with your technology and with your business model uh, in your slides. But start in that product side so that at the end of the product section, wherever you place it in your story, they understand what problem you're solving. You probably also want to profile your customer. And if you're a B2C, you want to talk about what does the demographic look like, age, what their tendencies are, what makes them your customer. When you go to a B2B kind of situation, it's really the same thing, but you're going to talk more about company size and the specific problems they run into in the particular market sector that they play in. If it applies to you and you provide great return on investment to a particular customer, you really want to go over that in this section. And then lastly, and what really brings this whole thing together, you want this section to describe your product and how it benefits the customer. Now, within the product section, and I'm going to do the same thing for the business model section, I'm going to go over some considerations to be made depending on what kind of company you are, because what you have to do for software is different than medical devices, which is different than semiconductor or other things. So first, I'm going to start with the software applications, whether they're applications on a desktop or more likely on a tablet or phone or cloud companies. So one is, if you're one of these kind of companies, use a lot of screenshots and make them as large as you can. These are just fantastic for explaining what you do and how you do it. It's the classic picture tells us 1,000 words. If you're going to show somebody how you do something, you wouldn't just tell them. You pull out your phone or your tablet and you'd show them. So you do the same thing. So I see a lot of people try to make it really small. You make that as large as it'll fit on the slide. Make the slide work around that screenshot of the phone, especially, as opposed to just kind of putting it in there and saying, well, it's big enough. You want it large. You want them to be able to see it. You want to make sure you describe that user experience, whatever it is, whatever you bring to it. And this varies from cloud to apps to general software kind of platforms. But you all have a customer and a user experience that you need to describe. And then you really got to talk about the benefits for all the constituencies because it's different. Okay, if you have a platform, you have a primary user and they may care about one thing, but you may have management and they care about something else, and you need to describe that for both. And then if you have a multi-sided marketplace that I'm going to spend a lot more time on a little bit later, you really have to talk about how everything plays for them. So if you're in the medical device space or the pharma space, it's a little bit different. You really need to use graphics to help explain the product and the problem because this stuff is really hard. So it's really difficult for a lot of people to understand. And the more you can use pictures and find a way to simplify it, the better off you'll be, without a doubt. Um, and you need to fine tune that presentation based on the audience. If you're talking to a VC who specializes in medical devices, you can use a lot more jargon and assume a lot more. But if you're doing a competition and you're going against a lot of other people or a lot of other technologies, you probably ought to make it a little bit simpler and use that discovery channel method. And because the tail and the development path within medical devices and pharma is so long, such that many companies that present will never get to product introduction. They'll expect to be purchased by J&J or Medtronic or someone like that company before they ever get to introduction. But you should describe that development status, path, and timing for sure. If you're an energy company, you have to use the Discovery Channel format because it's one of my specialties. So I get a lot of the stuff in energy, but a lot of people don't, and you can hear it in the media. The things they get wrong uh, is pretty amazing to most people. But you want to use that Discovery Channel format. You want to make sure that you don't break the laws. The fundamental laws of the universe, including conservation of energy. Because if it looks like you think that you're creating energy out of nothing, you will not do well with the technical audience. And the same thing is with medical devices. You want to fine tune it based on the the level of your audience. And one thing that you want to be aware of is that energy is generally thought as being extremely capital intensive, and it scares a lot of investors away. So the good news is that the people who invest in energy, whether it's traditional energy or alternative energy, they kind of get it. But you want to make sure that you're highly aware of that, because there are a lot of investors that'll start really questioning you about the capital intensive nature of it. And you really have to have your answers in place if you really want to be able to do anything. Now, a lot of other technologies, which includes electronics, semiconductors, advanced materials, and others. So these are high technology, and these are ones that I've spent a lot of my career in. You also have to do the Discovery Channel format, because it's extremely likely that the people that are talking to you will not technically know your space. You really need to simplify it. This is where you often see return on investment, as well as real benefits for a specific customer constituency. What is it that you do that makes the world better and makes the world more efficient and more cost effective? So that's it for the great product core topic. I thought I was going to get through the market, the team, and the business model, but we didn't. So that'll now be moved to the next module. I want these to be of a certain amount of time, and not go over 15 minutes, because I think that it's a reasonable way for you to go through this whole class. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a 2 to 3 hour workshop when you watch all of the videos, but hopefully it's useful and you learn a lot. So now the next module after that will be all those other topics, like the financials and the ask and intellectual property. As always, I want to tell you a little bit about Perfect Pitch. I believe it's the best pitch coaching experience that you can get. There really is nothing else like it. I will have a separate video, not done yet, but we'll get to it soon, that'll tell you a little bit more about what the process is like. But if you're thinking about raising money for a venture capital pitch, or you want to put that pitch together, you're applying for a entrepreneurial development organization sponsored funding that will be the thing that gets you started. You're in a pitch competition. You're going to do pitch days with SBIR, STTR, any of these things. This could be really, really helpful, and it'll pay off for years past that. So give that a consideration and go to our website if you're interested. And if you like what you're hearing, as always, we'd love to have you subscribe. And if you could give us a thumbs up, that'd be great as well. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next time.